don't we get started? I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name's Tony. Sobriety date's April 8, 1989. Welcome to the Keystone Big Book Study Workshop of the Program of Recovery, laid out by the first 100 Men and Women. And who do I have with me tonight, Katie?
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm a recovered alcoholic.
Awesome. Well, how do we open this meeting, Katie?
With a prayer.
You know why? That we at least know they're going to pray once or twice if they stay for the whole meeting, but once for sure. What do we need for a good meeting? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. People always go through that prayer like 100 miles an hour and afraid they're going to catch fire or something if they prolong it. It's the slowing down of the mind and the breathing. It's a really powerful prayer when you kind of get into it. But where we're at How It Works, Chapter 5. Yeah. We're at the part where, everybody's sitting in a meeting wondering how it works as they read how it works, right? So we're gonna go through this thing, right? And what is quite interesting, in my book, it's page 58, and it should be in most, but what's interesting is we've covered a lot of information, eh? We've covered, like, the forewords, the preface, the introduction to the doctor's opinion, how this whole thing was formulated, and with the spiritual appendix in the back of the book. We have a lot of information, right? And so what happens is as we go through this kind of ties it all together. And I always say, like, you hear people, a new person gets to hear what this is about, but they wouldn't really understand 90% of it, right? Because it's a summary of everything we've just kind of looked at, and it's put together by those who put this book together, and kind of to give us a kind of overview on when we're sitting in a meeting, what this is all about. It gets us refocused on the importance of the meeting, and it kind of reintroduces the idea of the traditions, our primary purpose, right? Tradition 1, tradition 5, and it gets the focus on those who've been through this, on what this is all about, right? Because the new person coming in here really doesn't understand what we understand about this whole thing, right? They're thinking about, how they're going to straighten out their lives. Oh, look at that pretty girl or guy over there. Like they're like squirrel, right? It's like, oh, look, something shiny. So they're all over the place. But when we kind of focus on our primary purpose, and when they talk about we are responsible, who is the people that have been through this, right? Not everybody in the meetings primary purpose is to carry this message to the alcoholic who still suffers. And you really see it once you've been through this. You really don't see it beforehand, but after you've been through this, you kind of see those who are in stage 1 recovery and those who are in stage 2 recovery, right? And we'll get into that a little later. So how it works, why don't we kind of dive into this and kind of we'll break it down and we'll kind of go from there. What do you think?
I think that sounds great.
Yeah. How many people in? We're all in? Let's do this thing. Okay.
Let's do it. That guy's excited too.
Chapter 5, how it works. Well, how does it work? Let's see.
Page 58, how it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path.
So what's really interesting? Oh yeah, we're gonna get some people who are not that well coming in to join us to let us know that, right? So it's gonna be interesting. So I always love that stuff. So rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Whose path? Though the spiritual kit of tools laid at our feet that they've incorporated within their life that they're carrying to us. Part of the example of that, remember in Bill's story, Ebby wanted to carry that message that he had this change to Bill, right? And so when they talk about the path, I remember, George, before I went through this, I had no idea what they were talking about, but it didn't stop me from having an opinion what it meant, right? And George says, what path? Right? And this is after 11 years of in and out, right? So I showed him the directory and I said 90 meetings in 90 days, and you'll be amazed before you're halfway through. I did not know what he was talking about, right? But when he conned me into that big book study, he took me through this, I got a good grasp of what he was saying. And that's the beauty about working with somebody who's been through this, who is book-based, right? They'll use the book. So what I heard, and I imagine is true when they say this path, where they get that idea from was, I'm not too sure if it was the Second World War, the First World War, where they'd have these people, their job was to set a path through the landmines. And they'd put these flags down, and you'd see their footprints, right? And if you followed within their footprints, the likelihood of you getting through the field would be way more in your favor than taking your own path. Every once in a while, someone would take a rest and go to the sidelines, and guess what? They wouldn't make it. Right? So rarely, thoroughly followed our path, right? Spiritual. Okay, those
who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program.
So that just cleared up a whole bunch of things, and you might want to, if anytime you want to jump in on this, is kind of like, it just told us there's a bunch of people within our fellowship who's always recovering, right? And they say we never. They just told you they haven't done this, right? Because they don't understand what we've recovered from. And they don't understand, unless we recover from this thing, we won't be able to really rebuild our lives, because we're still afflicted with the illness of alcoholism. That's why they're offering us a solution, not only for the human condition, as we apply these spiritual principles, somewhere along the line this problem gets removed. And people say, oh, it's in the step 10 promises. Actually, there's no such thing as the step 10 promises. It's a review in step 10 as their experience of incorporating all of this in their life. Upon careful reading, when we get there, we'll see it's a summary as they clean up the past, as they work with others, as they engage in developing and deepening and broadening their relationship with a power greater than themselves. They see somewhere along the line the very thing that was crippling them gets removed. In Bill's story, he talks about before he even left the hospital, he had all these principles that he was incorporating and allowing him to go out and face life, right? Remember, the people stayed skeptical for a year and a half. Most of us, after 2 weeks, we think everybody should forget everything we've already done, right? He's saying a year and a half he stayed the course, right? And he was plagued with the human condition. A lot of people call that alcoholism, but it's actually the human condition, waves of pity and self-resentment, right? And he talked about when we don't have a solution to the human dilemma, we'll turn back to things that we work. All of us who don't have a list of things that think they make them feel better, engage in it, make them feel worse. Right? And inevitably the insanity returns. So we've seen Bill was having a different experience because he was incorporating certain spiritual principles, right? That allowed him to see what was happening. Without that, he couldn't see it before. He fell victim to this stuff. So what was really cool was when all else failed, he went and worked with other people. He didn't go home and talk about it, find 15 meetings to go continue about it. He didn't read page 417 because there wasn't none then, right? He can't get that out there for Ray right off the hop there. So, okay.
People to give themselves to the simple program, usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves.
So at this stage of the game, what's the level of honesty they're talking about? Am I afflicted with this illness or not? Right? Because if I'm not afflicted with this illness at the level that they're talking about, will I see it necessary to go into the depths of this thing to bring about a spiritual experience or psychic change?
No.
I will not. I will start treating it like a behavioral problem, right? And we see a lot of that. People working on themselves. I'm working on this. I'm working on that. They engage in behavioral modifications, all behaviors, triggers, all this other stuff, which is incorporated by other fellowships and treatment centers.
Mostly treatment centers, right? Totally. And that's why the whole first portion that we've got to this point has been about education, teaching us what these two symptoms are, the two symptoms of alcoholism. They've spent all those chapters, all those pages explaining to us mostly what those things are so that you can make an educated decision about yourself. You can be fully honest with yourself, because if I don't have the facts, I don't even know that I'm not being honest with myself, right? And that's why reading up until this point has been so important, and that's why they've given us so many examples of what these symptoms look like. so that you can honestly ask yourself, do I exhibit these symptoms?
And what's really cool is we qualified ourselves on page 44. Right? Right in the preceding chapters, you've learned something about. We hope we've made clear the distinction between the alcoholic and non-alcoholic. So you're armed with you know what type of alcoholic you are, and what specific solution you need. Right? Most of us hoped against hope we were not true alcoholics or real alcoholics. Meaning, then I don't need this specific solution. I could just work on myself. Right? As a behavior. So the shift between an illness and a behavioral problem lies in step one on how I'm afflicted with this or not. Whether I need to do this on the same level of those who went before me or not. And so by the time we're here, actually we're in the transition from step 2 into step 3. And anybody know where that transition started? It started on page 45. When they talk about lack of power. Where and how will we define this power? Well, that's exactly what this book is about. Its main object is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself, right? Which will solve your problem, not help you solve your problem. Big difference.
Yeah.
Right? So we're engaged now, right? At this stage in the game, we're getting invested. Right? Because we see it's about the experience now, obtaining the experience, because knowledge won't be enough. That's why at the bottom of page 44, 45, if a moral, right, if a better philosophy of life, if that stuff was sufficient, which we've all tried, anybody here? Right? At great lengths, right? Got wordly books and all this other stuff, all these different books. We see all these books infiltrating the fellowship, right? And a lot of people say, I don't understand 6 and 7. Well, because you haven't really gone through 4 and 5. Because if you've gone through 4 and 5 the way the book outlines it, 6 and 7 is very clear. But no, I want to get the book, drop the rock, pick up the rock, we're all smoking rock or something like that. Like, you know, we want to get into how self, right, apply it to self will fix self. But if you're concentrating on a problem, how does concentrating on a problem fix the problem?
Never has.
Never. But the only person that don't know it is right.
Is the problem.
Is the problem, right? Because as you thinketh, right,
Yeah.
as what's they talk about what's as what's in your consciousness becomes a part of your thinking, and then it becomes a part of what your life looks like. So if this core change hasn't happened, what they talk about in the spiritual appendix in the back of the book, then you're still afflicted. You may act different on the outside, but you're still you on the inside. Where people say, oh, I haven't stolen anything today. Have you been thinking about stealing anything? Yes, all day I've been thinking. So it's just a matter of time before, as you are, you'll present. Does that kind of make, I don't know if that makes sense to anybody. So they think they've done good because they didn't steal nothing, but you thought about it all day. It's just a matter of time before you do it again. If you're thinking of, yeah. People go, oh, my old behaviors. It's not old if you're still doing it.
Yeah, totally.
It's still you showing up, right? Me and the wife laugh about this sometimes. Every once in a while, Tony will show up, eh? And it's not good when Tony shows up unsupervised. Anyways, moving on.
There are such unfortunates, they are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders. But many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest.
So how many people thought maybe I'm one of those people who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with ourselves? How many people thought they may be one of those? If you were, you wouldn't have came up with that thought. I went to my sponsors. I might be one of those people who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with myself. Then he says you wouldn't have come to that conclusion because you were unable to be honest with yourself, right? And darn, I thought I had a loophole there. I was like, tricked again. He says keep reading and keep moving forward. Keep your feet shuffling. Okay. Go ahead.
Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be.
Sorry. Just to back up.
Okay.
That's where the statistics come in, right? Where those who stayed with the AA showed improvement. You know, they have other things going on, right? So sometimes we gauge people with the sobriety date. Sometimes it's not always the sobriety date. Is sometimes people's lives, like Ebby, right? He continued to sponsor Bill, but he kept on relapsing. There's something like fundamentally not right with him every now and then, right? But he did die sober. So AA prolonged his life. Right? So like me, until I got taken through this, my first 11 years in and out, AA prolonged my life. Because without AA, I would have died like my brother did of alcoholism. Big cirrhosis of the liver at 32 years old. I wouldn't have made it to 32 years old because I was having like jaundice at 27. Right, my liver was... So AA prolonged my life. I'd get bouts of sobriety, then the insanity would return, which I understand now. I'd be off on another spree, coming to with a firm resolution not to do that again, not understanding alcoholism, really exerting myself even more, right? So this is repeated over and over. I'd get months and sometimes a year given good reason. But near the end, it was like every 3 months, every 6, living in Alcoholics Anonymous. My last pre-relapse, right? I was 26, and I did 360 meetings in 90 days. I got the 3-month ship, and I relapsed again afterwards. So those who were unable to, who were not armed with facts about themselves would think, why am I not exerting myself more? Why am I trying harder? Like, why hasn't somebody 12-stepped me through this process yet? So I'm part of the statistics where I got introduced to this for the first time in 11 years, went through it, and I'm a part of the 50% so far that as the result of this course of action, I have yet to relapse 36 years later. So what was the difference is this. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path, right? And I have grave emotional and mental disorders. I know it's hard to believe, but my cheese and cracker weren't even on the same plate. They were in different time zones, right? Walking around with a platter. They're got to be around here somewhere. Okay.
Thanks for clarifying, Fred.
Okay, go ahead. I'm doing all right for a guy in my mental condition, right? I'm doing all right.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now.
That's interesting, right? Because if you didn't know, a lot of people say what it was like. You could talk about what it was like and not even describe the symptoms of alcoholism. The consequences, right, of drinking don't make you alcoholic.
Yeah.
Right? Anybody who the heavy drinker, you think would have consequences?
Oh, yeah.
Anybody who had access of drinking, even normal people, you think they'd get a suspension? There are a whole bunch of guys at work, 24-hour suspension, a couple guys, right, they have to blow in a tube to get their car going and stuff like that. Now they, like, because dealing with people like us, now they have a camera to make sure you're the person who's doing it. Hey, buddy, can I pay you $5? Can you blow in this tube and get my car going? So then they got a camera to do. It's funny, like, there's something... I've met a couple people who've been constitutionally incapable, and it's really heartbreaking to see, but they can't see it, right? Like their partners, they just something fundamentally different about their partners. Like two people that I've met in the last 36, where their partners have breathalyzers for them. They have to blow in a breathalyzer. No, I'm sober. I know. Here, blowing this. I don't know why I turned red again. Like they just...
Batteries.
The batteries.
Batteries.
Needs to be recalibrated. Okay, go ahead. So, what it was like, it's not what we were like. In Bill's story, his inability to get sober, right? Remember that part of his story? The what happened part isn't treatment hitting bottom, right? Or coming to AA or detox or treatment. Right? The what happened part is the spiritual experience that we've obtained through a course of action. We see that in Bill's story, right? With Ebby at last third time in the hospital. What happened was he underwent this psychic change that the doctor witnessed, right? This doctor witnessed this wholehearted miracle starting to take place within his facility. What he was like afterwards was he was able to make easygoing out of rough, it was a way of life that worked in rough going. So everybody around him see there was something different about him, even though he still had a lot of problems. He was able to face those things without the insanity returning.
Yeah.
Clean up his past, help others, right? pretty wild.
Very cool. Very cool. So what happened and what we're like now? If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps.
And we see the links, right? It's not the things around us, is the challenges within ourselves. The obstacles within our own thinking, this thing that's working against us. We're getting information and evidence that says, I need to go this way, even though it makes no sense. I need to continue to go this way, where everything in me is telling me to go the other way. Right? And so the doctor said, if I'm willing to even apply the idea of prayer, like, I don't know who or what you are, but I need help, because if I don't get this thing, I'm going to die. Can you help me out? That was my prayer. I don't know who or what you are, right? But I'm willing for a new experience, because all my understanding of you has failed me. I've never had this experience on longevity. That was my prayer. Hey, you're supposed to be all that in a bag of chips. I need some help.
Yeah.
Right? I would pray like that. You know what? And I never got hit by lightning. Nothing's serious. But it was a beginning, right? Like, okay, I'm willing to go to any lengths. And facing some of these things within inside of me hasn't been easy. Remember where they talked about that? There is a solution. Almost none of us like the idea, right, of this course of action, but we've seen it was the only thing available for us to have a different way of life. And how many people have been through this, right? You see there's been a struggle all the way through until this change happened. Once this change happened, you think it was your idea, right? And then it's kind of, then you have an experience of, I know what it feels like to have this, and I know when I don't have it. Exactly. And I know the instructions to get it. So the humility starts to happen as pain. Right? Anybody experience self-induced pain here? Right? Anybody been defiant? And I've been like I know it's hard to believe, but I've been real defiant. Like, I mean, like in a lot of situations, I don't want to, where I've turned to say, okay, you know I'm defiant, you know I'm unwilling, but can you help me out? Help me get past this part of me that wants to kill me. That's it, right? I want to participate in the saving of my own life. Can you help me out here? Okay. And that's after the steps. So there you go. So if you're struggling, welcome. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not magic, right? Not everything just magically settles out and you're good to go.
Wouldn't that be nice, eh? And everybody gives you the impression, and once you do the steps, it's you and Dorothy on the yellow brick road, right? We're off to see the wizard. No, it's not like that at all, right? We're going through the forest, people. Buckle up. Okay.
Okay, if you decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps.
Well, what is it that we have? Like, you hear people, I don't want what he has. How do you know? Did you see that person before they did the steps? Did you see them beforehand? Yeah. It's not what I have. It's collectively what we have.
Yes.
It's a collective idea now, not a singular. Right? People, I really want what this person has. Well, were they afflicted on the same level you are? It's what we have. Am I available to have a different experience?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I didn't have the experience, right? Go ahead.
As some of these we bought, we thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not.
What does Bach mean?
Like a chicken.
Yeah, Bach means how many people's read the steps on the wall and say yes, no, no, no. You haven't even done step 1 yet, and you're balking at the idea of amends. The 5th step, that ain't happening.
No.
Working with others, I could get a job. That's not what they're talking about, right? Like, and batshit crazy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
But we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely.
And the old ideas is anything other than what's being presented.
Yeah.
How I'm going to keep me sober, how meetings are going to do this, how I'm going to phone, how I'm going to check in, I'm going to phone to my sponsor every day. Why would you do that to the person? But anyways, I'm going to do this every day, I'm going to do that. I'm going to be on guard with me. Remember that guy who was obsessed with him? Our first obsession is us, keeping ourselves sober. But when you're dealing with something you can't see, feel, and touch, your focus needs to shift that I can't do these things. Right? So the idea that I'm going to be safe just because I learned my lesson, we've already learned that isn't a part of step one experience. The step one experience is I know relapse is coming. The only thing that's going to save me from that fate is this spiritual experience and then entering a daily reprieve. The daily reprieve doesn't come before the spiritual experience. What happens before the spiritual experience is an act of providence, an act of grace, till it gets us. It's like drowning and somebody pulling you in with a rope till you get to shore. Then you can participate in the second phase where you got to go checked out so you don't have the second drowning. Like a lot of people drown after they're out of the water. It may sound kind of weird, but that's kind of like us. We're not drinking. We think we're in safeguard. We're kind of feeling a lot better, but the problem still exists. And we're confused because we can't see, feel, and touch it, because we want to be like Jim. We want to see the circumstances around relapse. But this is all internal. It's all something that happens inside of us that we can't see, feel, and touch. They call it a phenomenon, right? An unexplainable event that once a certain point is reached, just little can be done for us. But we think that it's going to be different, then we're really baffled that we relapse again 2 years later, 3 years later, 2 weeks later, or right after this meeting. Right? It's kind of okay, go ahead.
Okay. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely.
And the result is the psychic change of spiritual experience, right? They talk about that in the spiritual appendix, is that if we had the luxury of a couple of years, maybe we could bring about this change that they talk after a couple of years, but we can't afford to wait that long because there's some precondition that won't allow that longevity to take place. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Remember that we deal with alcohol. Cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us.
So what's the most important word there?
Remember.
Remember, you can't remember. Remember? Oh, yeah. So, but you bring that up in a topic meeting, everybody will talk about what they're doing to combat themselves from relapse. What they're doing. Right? Relapse is not even concerned once you've had a psychic change or spiritual experience, the problem's removed. It's not in our vocabulary. It's a grace that we've entered that we know as long as we keep spiritually fit and willing to do certain things on a daily basis. That's why step 11 is the only step with a 24-hour clock in it. Right? When we retire at night, upon awakening, as we go through, it's the disciplines of step 11 that keep us in check, because the mind has a way of taking us back to the maze. Right? Step 11 is a way to sidestep that and step out of the maze. Right? So we have this thing that we see. We permit the level of mental health that we're suffering from. Once you've been through this, right, really, we create our own reality. Does that give you a warm, fuzzy feeling? You're some result of all your thinking. I got to scare the crap out of somebody. It's like, oh, okay, go ahead.
Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now.
Why is it too much for us? Because we can't see, feel, and touch it. So a lot of people think, oh, cunning, baffling, and powerful. I'll be able to see it. How? It's cunning, baffling, and powerful. How would you be able to see something that's cunning, baffling, and powerful? If you were able to see it, then why did it happen the last time? Well, we're not talking about the last time. This time is going to be different. No, it's not. Well, it's going to be different. It's going to be more painful than the last time. Anybody's relapses here getting better? How many people are looking forward to the next one?
No.
My family can't wait. They really enjoyed the last time. Here comes the paper slippers, right, Katie? Okay, moving on.
Socks with grippy tape on the bottom. They're not slippers anymore.
Everybody's totally overreacting here. That's right.
But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now.
Yeah, not later. We have access to it now. Now.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I need help. That's now.
Yeah.
All right. And we're going to show you how to develop your own personal relationship with this power. You know, we could call it a peanut butter and jam sandwich. If you haven't been through, we agnostics, you'll say, well, I don't eat gluten bread. You'll still find something to argue about. But once you've been through this, you understand the collective understanding, what we mean by access to a power greater than ourselves. We don't care what you call it, right? But the basis of it is the same for all of us, right? Like if I was to hold up my phone, right, and go, like, connection, everybody knows what I'm talking about is lack of power is my dilemma, and we'll find a way to get me connected. Now, what's really cool is you can take your phone and just put it on a pad and it'll start charging. Right? That's what we're offering here. It's kind of wild. I don't believe it's okay. Go through the process. You'll be contacted shortly. Okay, go ahead.
Half measures availed as nothing.
Why? Because we have to have a certain experience.
Yeah.
Unless this experience happens, what's our fate?
Nothing.
We beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Why are these people overzealous about me participating in the saving of my own? You ever notice that people around you are more concerned for you than you are?
Yeah.
Right? These overzealous people trying to 12-step me. What's the matter with them? They've been watching you. They heard you sharing a meeting. Right? It's like, damn, that one's mine. Katie. Katie, we were at the Big Book study the Friday night in Vancouver before COVID hit. Look, we're getting like 115 people. It's the biggest Big Book workshop in Canada. So Katie comes up to me one day. She goes, will you sponsor me? I said, I don't sponsor women. And then she started telling me her story. I said, okay, I'll sponsor you, right? Because nobody wanted to sponsor her, right?
And returned many times.
That's right. And then this other woman said, will you sponsor? I said, I don't sponsor women. But you sponsor Katie. Yeah, that's different, right?
Doesn't count.
She's different. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, half measures availed as nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon.
Turning point. Where Bill was sitting at the kitchen table drinking.
Hmm.
He stood he made a decision. It was only a matter of being willing to do what his friend did. Nothing more was required of him. You don't have to have a relationship or an understanding of God.
We wouldn't expect you to.
Yeah, we don't expect you to, but everybody thinks, I have to have this relationship with God now. It doesn't say that nowhere. It says, are you willing to go through this process to have the experience that we have? And as you go through it, it'll be redefined. My understanding before the steps and after the steps is two different things.
Totally. And continues to evolve and grow. Yeah.
And so they talk about, here are the steps we took. Who took? They took. This is in past tense. Mm-hmm. It's not present tense. So when people, here are the steps we took, was just suggested as a program of recovery. So the program of recovery is the course of action in allowing us to adopt spiritual principles for longevity. The steps turn into principles. How many times you need to do the steps? You need to do the steps once. What's the purpose of the steps? To get connected. What's the purpose of the principles is to grow an understanding of effectiveness. But we don't hear that, right? It's like when I got my license, I had to go through a course of action to take my license. If I didn't read the common understanding that everybody else had, and I went to do my test to get my learners, I would fail if I went in with my own understanding. So I had to read the leaflets, the pamphlets, get the same understanding as everybody else, and then when I had the A, B, C, kind of choose this, choose that, how well I understood the common understanding of how to obtain a license, then I would pass, yes? Mm-hmm. And then when somebody would teach me how to drive the car successfully, and I went for my road test and I practiced all these principles, that would allow me to get my license. Having had a spiritual awakening, having got my license as the result of the course of action that I had to engage in, that everybody before me had to engage in to get my license. Once I get my license, I no longer have to do those things that I had to do it. It's like the difference between how many people has been unemployed here. There's a big difference between being employed and unemployed.
Yeah.
The course of action I need to do to get a job, right, is different than the course of action I need to do to keep a job. Does that kind of make sense? Once I have the job, I don't have to do all those things I had to engage in to get the job, all the interviews, once I have the job is about staying connected to my employer and performing his work well. And if I do that, that keeps me employed. So all I have to do is stay employed by doing the things that are being asked of me on a daily basis. Does that kind of make sense? And if I don't do those things, I'll get a couple warnings. Life gives us a couple warnings. And if I still don't listen, then the union gets involved, right? And then if I still don't, I lose my job. And then I have to go through the whole thing again. Then the insanity returns. I don't know how simple that is. But we're just going to look at the first step. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. It's the same thing, the same equal, right? Why is my life unmanageable? If I can't stay sober, wouldn't that make for an unmanageable life?
Yeah.
Don't got the rent again. Why? I don't know. Don't got groceries. Don't got support money. Don't got insurance for the car, and you're driving with it. So all the consequences as this illness has robbed me from things. You hear people say, "I lost everything." No, you didn't lose everything. Everything is still in place. Family, job, all those. They lost you. You got lost. They're still waiting for you. Mm-hmm. Right? That's why cakes are so remarkable, is when the family shows up and they're starting to live by the same principles that you are, because it catches on. Yeah. Right? Just like your illness used to punish everybody around you, your recovery starts to enhance everybody around you. The promises start coming true, not only for you, but the people around you. It's really remarkable. Like I remember Katie, when she couldn't get sober, her family was devastated. Her sister used to make sure she come to the meeting, poke her in the side. Are you listening? She had padding on one side. Right?
And you know what happens today? My sister comes to me with her stuff, in her relationships, in her family, with her kids. You know, like I'm her big sister, and that should be my role as her big sister, and I could never be that for her. It was so unmanageable. I had no faith, no direction. You know, and now I can help her, even if it's not advice, it's just teaching her to breathe and connect and pray. You know, I don't have the answers, I don't know, but you know.
And when she lived close, right, her mom used to give cookies. Go give these to Tony. We're so grateful, right? But it's not me, it's us, right? And our responsibility to direct people to this path, to get people connected. Once they're connected, they have their own experience. And then we share our experience, strength, and hope as they navigate through things on how to apply these principles to get access to this power to overcome the things in ourselves that are crippling us and bogging us down. So they do this course of action, right? This is what they did, which is the outline for us before starting, is step 2. Right? They talked about that, and there is a solution. This is all outlined in step 2. The confirmation of step 1 is another drink. The confirmation of the idea here that came to believe the power greater than self could restore sanity is on the next page, step 12. Mm-hmm. The confirmation of step 2, is step 12. Having had what?
A spiritual awakening as the result of these steps.
Singular. A lot of people say as a result, implying that there's a whole bunch of different reasons for doing this. It's singular. I think NA says as a result. We say as the result because they have a more behavioral approach to addiction than we have in regards to alcoholism. It's singular. Why I'm doing this stage of the game is to have this psychic change or spiritual experience. If I don't acquire it, I'm going to be doomed to an alcoholic death. Mm-hmm. That's got my attention. How many people did that got your attention? You know what your fate is. You're going to do it again. And it's going to get worse, not better. Right? If it was about doing the steps to be a better person, I didn't need to be a better person. Like, I was, I know it's hard to believe, but I wasn't quite right. Like, I sat in this 12 and 12 meeting, and the guy goes, they're talking about step 8, and I was listening to everybody. This is after, I think I was 10 years, And I'm sitting in this stuff, I'm listening to everybody, which I've sat in many times, and they go, hey, Tony, you want to share about this list? I said, I never did nothing to nobody that didn't have it coming to them. I got a couple of people still to get even with. My sponsor, the guy who now he nearly fell off his chair. He says they started calling me Tony Montana after that, right? And then the Golden Gloves of the Wine and Snow. I just didn't get it. Why would I get it? Because I didn't do all the work previous to that to understand, right, the harms and all that other stuff. But once I went through the big book, it was clear by the time I got there. So we're on page 60. Let's look at this. Let's watch the transition here, okay? A lot of people miss the transition. It's the most read piece of literature in the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous and least understood. Right? Because if you really understood it, then you'd be talking more as a person who has recovered, as a person who's been through this, you'd be talking about the second half more than the process of the steps. Stage one is you trying to overcome you. And the focus is you. That's steps. Anybody been to a meeting lately? Stage one recovery is all about that. Mm-hmm. Stage two recovery is all about our relationship and service to others. Yeah. Big difference. We're sitting in there. Oh, listen to that person share. That one's mine. Okay, go ahead. Step 12.
Step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
Carry what message? This experience that I have, not the steps. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about the steps. I'm talking about my experience. And if you want what we have, this is how I got it. Through this process. Mm-hmm. Right? So the focus is different now for a person who's recovered. I'm talking about this experience that I have had. People who haven't had this experience talk about the steps. Carry this message. What message? That I am no longer afflicted with the illness I was when I got here. I've recovered from this thing. The miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous I'm a part of now. I have a phenomenal story. The best story I've ever heard in my life is mine.
It should be.
It should be.
You should be the most impressed with your own story.
Yeah, why? Yeah. Because I have the story of Alcoholics Anonymous in my life. I've witnessed this wholehearted miracle taking place in my own life. I mean, my God, where I was and where I am, I couldn't have created this. There's no way I could have created this. The life I have here, man, I was living in the basement of a store. That you had to lift the hatch up and go down in before I came out here, and had a garden hose for a hose. And I was dying of an illness, unemployable, and it was brutal. I had my clothes on a rack. I had a hot plate over the thing, and I'd sleep on the floor, and every once in a while I'd feel the bugs crawling on me, and it was like my life was over, right? And I got into such a situation where my brother called me, and I came out here to Vancouver. It saved me from the fate of dying a horrific death in the basement of that facility, right? Sitting, drinking with guys who are drinking Lysol, right? And bitters, 23 years old, right? My God, how did I get from there to here, right? If you want what we have. Sorry, anyways, go ahead. Many of us exclaimed,
what in order? I can't go through with it. Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints.
I had a sponsor give me a t-shirt like that. Not a saint. Right? So what are they saying here? Why would you be discouraged? You'd be discouraged by you and your thinking.
Yeah.
And your own emotional deformities and how this isn't happening fast enough. You'd be talking yourself out of the very thing that you see necessary to do in the beginning. Somewhere along the line, your brain starts taking a shift. We beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. We need to get into this fast. You need to finish the 4, finish your 5, to have enough self removed out of the way that you get a connection with something greater than you. And you need to get busy helping others and taking care of your past. Three reasons why people relapse. One, they haven't done step one sufficient enough to engage them in the rest of the course of action. Two, they weren't honest in their fifth step. And three, they stopped making amends. Didn't have the power to make amends, which ties into 11 and working with others. Because there's no way you're going to survive you without the recipe of working with others. Because working with others reminds you of where you come from and where they're hoping, the people you're working with, you're at where they're hoping to be. You may not be impressed as a newcomer, but the people who you're working with are totally amazed with what you're presenting. The hope and the idea that they could have a different life because you talked about what you used to be like. And what happened is this change. And what you're like now, and you walk in my life and walk around, is like pretty amazing stuff. Katie, I won't get into her story, but if you heard her story and you've seen the way she's living, it's pretty amazing stuff. It is mind-boggling.
It's true.
Right? It's mind-boggling. What made that happen was this experience. So we've had this experience. Don't be discouraged, right? Don't let you talk yourself out of this. Keep moving forward. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
We're not saints. The point is, what's the point?
The point is we are willing to grow along spiritual lines.
And that's step 11, willing to grow along spiritual lines. Step 11 is designed for progress.
Right.
When we review our day, where did we fall short? What corrective measures shall we take so we don't fall in the same mess again? It's not step 10 every day. If you have to do step 10 every day, you're missing something.
Yeah.
If you're still stepping in the same dog pile every day and you get in between your toes, you're missing something. Do step 11, pick up the dog pile. I don't know how to say it. Turn on a light when you're walking. Do something different. Okay, go ahead.
The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection.
What does that mean? For you may mean something different than me.
Yes.
Right? Like sober, I was pushing people down the street in my car, in their car. Sober. Getting kicked out of roundups, getting barred from restaurants. I know it's hard to believe. I wasn't right, but I didn't know I wasn't right. Through conflict with other people, it gave me the engagement of, and the people around. I remember this one situation. I was at the recovery club down in Vancouver on Richard Street, and it used to be in the, and then we moved. Anyways, long story short, I got in conflict with three guys. And I said, I promised them that I wouldn't fight on the property anymore. So I said, let's go outside. They said, who? I said, all three of you. So we'll make it a fair fight. So we get I'm off the property and there's on the property. I said, come on. And so they go, you'll catch what I'm saying in a minute here. I said, come on. They said, who? I said, all three. You're going to make it a fair fight. They said, you're crazy. They ran back upstairs and they went and talked to Joyce. They went into the office. They said, there's this crazy guy in the laneway. He says he wants to fight all three of us. And he said he didn't want to disrespect the property. He wanted to do it in the laneway. She says, who? She says, I don't know, this big guy with a big afro, right? And he's got tape on his glasses, right? He looks like, she goes, oh my God. She goes, Tony? They go, yeah, that's him. She goes, everybody okay? They went, yeah, and she says, oh my God, that guy's come a long way. So that might not be progress for you, but for me, that was progress, right? Like, you know what I mean? Getting employed, keeping a job, that's progress. How did I handle this before the steps, before the spiritual experience? And how do I handle it now? Where's God in this situation? And I can still show up. Anybody here?
Definitely.
So it says to practice these principles now, which keeps me connected to source. Because if I'm not connected to source, I'm in conflict. It starts with me, and then it transpires into you.
Always.
How many? Huh?
Yeah, always itself.
Yeah. First. How many people have been married here, or married?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll leave that alone. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I'm not liking the way
that one has nothing to do with my life.
Sometimes I'm not liking the way she's breathing, right? And my wife's, I love my wife with all my heart, but I can create a story where it's like, Right? So I got to correct it at an internal level by practicing these principles, creating a shift within my mind, and creates a shift within my action. Go ahead.
What a gift that was too, to be able to look at something from a different perspective. We were given that through this process, through this, intensive work. So
our description of the alcoholic, we've covered that.
Of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic.
Very important. A lot of people haven't been through We Agnostic. Why? It's the formulating of a game plan or conception to move forward. It's the basis of step 2 and the transition into step 3.
Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after.
Before and after the steps. You have one dilemma. And if anybody's unsure what that is, next time you stand in front of a mirror, ask yourself, what would be my dilemma? And take a good look at who's looking back at you, because you're now looking at the problem. I had one sponsor give me those stickers. You're now looking at the problem. I wouldn't suggest this. I put it on my wife's mirror. It didn't go over well, but I kind of missed the point of that. That's it. My other sponsor, he says, you shouldn't have the AA stickers, live and let live, easy does, on the outside of the car. The people behind you don't need to be reminded of that. You should have it on the inside of the car.
Yeah. Totally.
And easy does it right by the speedometer.
Let's put a fireman sticker in the back of the window.
That's it. George. 3. Okay. Make clear 3 pertinent ideas. What are those ideas?
A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives.
Why wouldn't we be able to manage our own lives? Because we keep getting drunk.
Yeah.
Right?
Pretty unmanageable. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism.
Meaning, create the change sufficient enough, the psychic change sufficient enough to recover from the illness that's killing me. So I moved from potentially hoping to be the hard drinker, given good reason, could quit. I was hoping to moderate, but quit, right? Given good reason, but then unable to do that because I'm afflicted with the illness of alcoholism. I'm a real alcoholic. I have the malady that centers in the mind. I cannot see, feel, and touch it. When it becomes present, as the 2 examples is Jim and Fred, the examples of those 2 people were they're both afflicted with the same illness of this idea that precedes the first drink. Just before something happens, a shift that parallels with our sound thinking that takes over, that we can't see it. We take a drink, and then the phenomenon of craving happens. We go through a well-known stage of a spree, right? That what?
That God could and would if he were sought.
So how do we seek God now? How do we seek this thing? The solution is, they say God could and would if he were sought, meaning, or this power, right? If I got access to this power, could create the change that I'm hoping for, right? Or the experience that I see in other people. How do I obtain this thing at this point in time? Well, that's what this book is about. The main object is to enable you to have the same experience that we're having, right? We promise you that if you do what we did, you'd get what we got. I've never met anybody who's ever done this, who's maintained it, who's ever relapsed. And severe cases, beyond hope. And that's who this book was put together for. With Bill, when you look at Bill, Dr. all these people, the first 100 men and women, all had the same collective experience. They couldn't get sober no matter how great the necessity or the wish. They could not stop themselves at certain times or without defense against the first drink. Right? Except in a few rare cases, neither them or any other human being can provide such a defense. The defense must come from a power greater than where and how were we to find this power. That's exactly what this book is about. So what it's saying is keep walking, keep continuing. We'll give you all the information you need, and the combination lock is sufficient enough for you to have your own experience. But you're up against something that doesn't want you to continue this, So now I know where the lifeline is. No matter what, I got to make a commitment to that regardless of what my brain says. And I showed up at that meeting every Tuesday night. And I didn't like those guys. Before I finished my 5th, the more they went through this, the more I didn't like them. but there was nobody else willing to work with me. Nobody wanted. This is the first home I ever got invited to. When I went and knocked on the door, Judy, God bless her, Al-Anon, I love her. She opened the door, she see me, she went, her eyes just like, I thought, man, her eyes, she looks weird. Her eyes were all buggy. I thought, what a weird. She was like in shock that I showed up at her place. I knew her address because I was at a meeting and they were having an Al-Anon meeting. Like, I wasn't well. I know it's hard to believe. I got into a fight with somebody. The chairs were flying all over. She came out and she goes, what are you guys doing? We stopped and she says, what? She says, we have a meeting over there. I said, what kind of meeting? She says, Al-Anon. She says, I said, what's that? She goes, you three knew? We went, yeah. She says, I don't got time to explain it 3 times. So every time I went by that meeting, it started before ours. I used to say, you guys are welcome. Like, what a thing to say for them to find a spiritual. I say, hey, you're welcome. And they'd just look at me and just give me that look. Anyways, I've made amends since then. I've moved on. Anything you want to add on closing there?
No, you're welcome.
I'll second that. Yeah, I still see her today. She gives me a hug. She's great. How willing she was to go through anything so her husband could have a different experience, right?
Cool.
I mean, it's pretty cool, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's it. That's all. That's awesome. May you live long and prosperous. May the force be with you. And, keep walking with us. This is exciting stuff. You want to add anything there, sister?
No, I just want to point out how long it took us to get through that, and think if we read that at the beginning of every meeting, and how many of you actually listen to the words and process what they're saying. You know, it's pretty cool to dive into it that deeply and look at exactly what they're saying with this stuff, because it's really important.
Yeah, and as you, just to close the loop, as you sit in a meeting and hearing this read, or even more about alcohol or whatever they choose to remember, there's somebody sitting there, maybe for first, second, or third time, dying of alcoholism, and you have been given this opportunity. Many could recover if they had the same opportunity we have enjoyed. What's our job is to present the same opportunity, right? And it's not talking about the steps. It's talking about the experience I had as the result of these steps. And these people, how did you get this experience? Well, let me explain it to you. Right? Yeah. Anyways, may the force be with you. We'll close this way for those that stayed. I know at least you prayed twice today. Right? What do we need for the basis of a good life, Katie? God. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Courage to change the things I can. And the wisdom to know the difference. I got here on empty. My truck just made it. I got to go to the gas station. I didn't want to miss the meeting. Just from work. We worked 11 today. We're starting at 5 tomorrow morning. Shoot. So it's, man, I never thought I'd be excited about coming to a big book study. What a life. Okay. Anybody have any questions, or we have some fellowship now? We'll unmute for those that wish. And then how do you...
My name's Kathleen. I have a question.